Okay, picture this. Your local radio station goes dead for, say, 30 seconds. You'd probably just think the signal dropped, right? No big deal? Well, in the small town of Willow Creek, Montana, that exact same thing happened, and it plunged the entire community into total chaos, sparking a full-blown panic. This is the wild story of how it all went down.
This quote right here, it really nails the core of this whole thing. I mean, think about it. We live in a world of constant pings, notifications, and alerts. So when all that noise suddenly disappears without explanation, well, that can be way more terrifying than any siren. It creates this void, and our brains just can't help but fill it in with the worst possible scenarios.
So, let's head over to Willow Creek. We're talking about a quiet, tight-knit community where the local radio station isn't just something you have on in the background. It's the town's heartbeat. It's their lifeline.
Yeah, with only about 4,200 people, pretty much everyone tuned in to KWX 98.7. It's how you found out everything, from the morning farm report to a critical tornado warning. And the man at the center of it all was Dale Harlan, the morning host for over 32 years. The guy was a legend, as reliable as the sunrise. So you see, this wasn't just some radio station, it was an institution, built on decades of solid, unwavering trust.
And then came March 12th. At exactly 7:42 in the morning, smack in the middle of his show, Dale's voice just vanished. It wasn't replaced by an ad or an emergency tone, first a crackle of static, and then just pure, deep, unnerving silence. Now, the absolute panic that followed didn't happen because of one single thing. It was this disastrously timed collision of a super simple technical mistake and a totally harmless coincidence. It was, in every single sense of the phrase, a perfect storm. Okay, so here are the two pieces of the puzzle. On one side, you've got an overworked technician, Riley Voss, dealing with old equipment, who accidentally flips the mute on the station's emergency override. On the other side, the wind just happens to shift, carrying this faint but weird smell from a fertilizer plant doing routine maintenance 10 miles away. You look at these two things separately, and they're nothing. But when they happened at the exact same time, they became the ingredients for a total disaster.
This whole situation created what experts call an information vacuum. It's a fascinating and, frankly, terrifying idea. When a trusted source of information just goes dark, people don't just sit around and wait. They start guessing, they start speculating, and almost always, they assume the absolute worst. The silence from KWCX created the perfect breeding ground for panic to grow.
And that is exactly what happened. You had people like Mrs. Eleanor Hayes, who noticed the strange smell and felt her eyes start to water. Normally, what would she do? She'd turn up the radio, and good old Dale would probably be explaining it was just the fertilizer plant. But with only silence on the airwaves, her imagination and the imagination of the entire town just started running wild.
So now we get to the part where modern technology took all those individual pockets of anxiety and basically threw them into a blender, creating a massive, town-wide hysteria. This is where things really spun out of control. The speed of it all is just terrifying. At 7:42, silence. By 8:05, that's just 23 minutes later, the station's phones are completely jammed, and the first viral Facebook post pops up. You know the kind, "I smell chemicals, anyone else?" Another 25 minutes after that, the sheriff's office is fielding hundreds of calls, and by 9 a.m., a county hazmat team is scrambling to get there. It was that fast. And that initial wave of fear, the scale was just staggering. Over 200 emergency calls flooded the lines in less than an hour. In a town of just over 4,000 people. For a small community, that's a total system failure. The official channels were completely gridlocked, which of course only made people feel even more alone and even more terrified. So, what was feeding this inferno? Well, social media was basically pouring gasoline on it. Rumors of a chemical attack started flying around. People started making these false connections to a train derailment that happened miles away a month before. A video of a woman in a gas mask screaming went viral. People were barricading themselves in their homes. And get this, the poor technician's attempt to help completely backfired. His frantic, garbled livestream was misunderstood as an official order to evacuate. Just a total mess. But then, the turning point. The silence that kicked this whole thing off is finally broken, and the community is forced to look around and confront the jarring reality of what had just happened. At 9:15 a.m., after a frantic hard reset of the entire system, a familiar voice finally came back. It was Dale Harlan, and you could hear the emotion cracking in his voice as he told the terrified town, "Technical difficulties only, we're safe." Can you just imagine the collective sigh of relief? That sudden jarring stop to the terror? In that one instant, the spell was broken. But, the damage was already done.
So even though the threat itself wasn't real, the harm absolutely was. The hazmat team showed up and confirmed the smell was just harmless low-level ammonia. But that didn't unring the bell. The panic led to 3 actual car accidents as people tried to flee, a real hospitalization from a panic attack, and real disruption as every school in the area shut down for the day.
When the dust settled, the official investigation laid it all out. The radio station got hit with a fine from the FCC for an emergency alert system violation. Basically, their equipment failed a critical public safety duty. The technician, whose mistake was an accident, was sent for mandatory retraining. But the heaviest consequence by far fell on the community itself. Mass trauma and a lingering fear, with some residents reporting phantom smells for months after the event.
And then, the real bombshell dropped. A leaked internal memo revealed that the station's owners had known for years that the equipment was faulty and old. They'd actually ignored warnings to upgrade it just to cut costs. This just changes the entire story, doesn't it? It goes from a freak accident to a case of pure, calculated negligence. That silence wasn't just a glitch, it was pretty much inevitable.
So, what are we supposed to learn from all this? The story of Willow Creek isn't just some bizarre local news item. It's a really powerful cautionary tale about our modern world and our relationship with information, trust, and technology.
To really understand what happened, you have to know about psychosomatic symptoms. It's this idea that a lot of people in Willow Creek reported very real physical feelings, burning eyes, scratchy throats, coughing, and those weren't caused by the ammonia. They were caused by the intense psychological stress and fear they were under. Their brains literally created physical symptoms to match the belief that they were in danger. It's wild.
The lessons here are pretty stark. We learned that the sudden absence of a trusted voice can be way more powerful than a loud siren. We saw how social media, which rewards speed and engagement over accuracy, is the perfect ecosystem for fear to spread faster than facts. But maybe the biggest takeaway is this. Corporate negligence in our information systems isn't some abstract problem. It is a direct threat to public safety, where a company cutting costs on a piece of hardware can end up traumatizing an entire community.
And all of that leaves us with this one final chilling thought. The systems we count on to keep us safe are fragile. They depend on technology, sure, but they also depend on people, and most of all on trust. And as we saw in Willow Creek, when that trust gets shattered by silence, especially a silence born from neglect, the results are devastating. It really makes you wonder, what happens if next time the danger is real, and the trusted voice we all need to hear simply isn't there?